Hey everyone, I want to talk about why it's so important to get back to work, whether you're going through OCD and anxiety recovery, or maybe any other hardship in your life, not even OCD or mental illness related. This could be, loss of a loved one, just any type of experience that you deem as really unfortunate. A lot of people, understandably so, will clam up because there's a lot of content out there where people are telling you to take time for yourself, which there's definitely a time and place for that. But in the way that we're living right now, it's usually at the detriment of what we call the low frustration tolerance, which is coined by Dr. Albert Ellis, who created the original cognitive behavioral therapy. REBT was the original CBT, and in our opinion, it's much more emotive and behaviorally. Sometimes when people are applying changing their cognition or changing their behaviors, they're doing it in kind of a wishy-washy fashion. And this is something that Ellis talked about when he was working with his clients and realizing that there was, you really have to go about it in a way to where the wishy-washiness of it will actually stop you from reaching your goals. So before I go any further, please subscribe, hit that like button. If you're interested in our coaching and webinar services, please email info@ocdrecovery.com and we get back to you in a timely fashion. Now, when I was going through OCD and anxiety recovery, one of the first things I did was I stopped going to work. So I stopped engaging in life again. I stopped going to the gym. I stopped going out with friends. And I thought, deep down, it was the best thing for me because we have all these people that talk about you have to take time for yourself. But there's usually a pendulum swing balance where most people are taking too much time for themselves, way too much time for themselves. And they're building that consistent low frustration tolerance. Now, people are allowed to do what they want. We don't try to convince anyone of anything. We know that we can't make decisions for you. If you want to continue down that route and sit on the couch all day, that's obviously up to you. But there's much better choices out there. But in order to make those choices, someone has to get very real with the behavioral actions that they're doing, and they're not really healthy for them. So when it came to work specifically, these are the behaviors I needed to change, and these are the beliefs that I had. So the first behavior was going into work. So there was a long period of time where I just wasn't even going into work. The second one was I was leaving work early. And it didn't seem important, but I was leaving 15 to 20 minutes early every day because I was like, I would get bottled up towards the end and leave. Or I would go in late. So going late, leaving early, then not going at all. Or really rushing my job and not taking my time on anything because I just had this belief system that I couldn't do it. Those were really the main behaviors that I had. The belief systems that I had pertaining to that was the fear of being overwhelmed, the fear of not being able to handle my job, the fear of making a mistake, and the fear of my OCD getting worse. Now, I can tell pretty quickly when I'm working with someone if they have a fear of going back to work. Now, when someone hasn't been in work for a long time and they're suffering with OCD, PTSD, GAD, panic disorder, whatever anxiety-based disorder, or really anything in life, when you have consistently stayed home and engaged in poor lifestyle factors, when you go back to work, that is more than likely going to flare your symptoms up pretty good. And it's completely understandable why it does that. You've been avoiding for so long that when you go back to work, it really brings that perception that you're getting worse. But the one thing I had to learn for myself is you don't want to judge your OCD and anxiety recovery primarily based off the way you feel. And the reason why that's a bad idea is because your feelings are all over the place. Some of you have more physical symptoms of anxiety. Some of you have depersonalization and derealization. If you want to learn more about that, the 5th book on our reading list at ocdrecovery.com underneath the resource tab is called Paul David's At Last a Life. Depersonalization and derealization, also nicknamed DPDR, is almost like when I'm talking to someone, when I explain this to people in coaching calls, they're like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Instead of just me talking to say, this is Jim, me talking to Jim, it's me, this hazy, foggy perception of my suffering, and then Jim. Almost like I'm looking through like a steamed mirror in a steam room or a foggy, humid climate. Or almost like you're slightly underwater. You're there, but you're not fully present. that is another symptom that the person needs to wear. Depersonalization and derealization has been one of my biggest symptoms in my journey. Some people have it, some people don't. The symptoms don't matter. You have to wear all of them, all the intrusive thoughts, images, sensation, urges, depersonalization, derealization, chronic shame, chronic guilt. You have to bring all of that with you to the workplace. So if you've been avoiding for a while, those symptoms are going to skyrocket, convince you in 2 seconds that you haven't made any progress, and you have to revert back to compulsions and avoidance behaviors. That mistake is very common. I've made it hundreds, if not thousands of times. So I'm working with someone in coaching. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to educate them on the practical realities that it isn't going to feel okay. Right? A lot of people tell you it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay, but it's not. It's not going to be okay in the way you imagine. I don't mean that in the sense that you're not going to be able to recover, but you're going to be really fucking scared. And the reason why I'm being so blunt about that is because it's the truth, and there's too many people out there telling you the false realities because they've never experienced OCD, so they don't really understand it. But that's okay. I mean, people just aren't going to understand it, but it is important to clarify the myths surrounding the work environment with OCD. Now, a lot of people put conditions on their work. So maybe they're a bagger at a grocery store, and again, this isn't about comparison, just examples, and they're not too afraid, but maybe I work personally with like 3 or 4 medical doctors. I've worked with different doctors of psychiatry, psychologists, different PhDs, high-ranking people in tougher situations, medical field, like I said, police academy, all sorts of stuff. And these people tend to think, they'll put a condition, you know, if I had this job, it wouldn't be so bad, but because I have this job, it's the worst. But that's what OCD does. It's going to attack the job field that you're in because you believe that you can't make a mistake. Now, when I work with the medical doctors specifically, we always joke and talk about how much that it will perpetuate this fear of making a mistake. Because in something like a medical school, like a medical doctor or a surgeon or a high-ranking lawyer or an accountant, they base it completely off perfection. Those school systems are based off of you cannot make a mistake. If you make a mistake, you are not just your behavior is a mistake. You are a total failure and a loser and an idiot. It is so incredibly unrealistically irrational that once you get past it and you start to realize how irrational it is, the sympathy and compassion that you hold towards people that believe that starts to become very encompassing because it's a very sad way to live your life, an understandable way to live your life because most humans are highly irrational creatures. Irrationalities are innate, biological so in the way that humans see them because it's an easy way. When someone does something at work and makes a mistake, it's very easy to say that person's a failure, they're an idiot, instead of they made a mistake. Even if they make 50 mistakes, it doesn't mean they're a failure. They're just a person who's failed a lot. So the person can never be the identity of the failure. It doesn't make any sense. It's the human being is too complex, too evolutionary, too ever-changing to just be one thing, a failure, a rejected idiot, a loser. There's no such thing as that. Breaking this down is so key. And when you break this down, it's important to realize that no one else will see it this way but yourself. So, you know, when you go to work, when you're really anxious and you have a panic attack and you make a mistake, you will be judged. You may even be fired. We don't know. You have to wear that uncertainty. So again, the reason why I made this video was talking about the irrationality surrounding the belief systems, fear of being overwhelmed, fear of making a mistake, fear of being rejected, losing your job. And then you kind of have these subcategory fears of going broke, being homeless, all that, boom, 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 boom. So addressing the worst case scenario is very key. The behavioral actions is, you know, not going to work, leaving work early, going into work late, always scrolling on your phone, distracting yourself at work. And that's how all that looks. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you're interested in more life scenario videos, please comment down below. I answer every single comment. You know, even if there's 100 comments, I'm going to respond in some way. It's very important to give back to the community, to me. I've been exactly where you are. I felt like I had no hope, but there's so much hope. You know, 3 years ago, in about 9 days, I was in the mental hospital. Only 3 years ago, so I made a lot of progress in 3 years. A lot of progress to go in life and in general, because we're ever-changing humans, you know, complex beings. And this is something, these tools are for life. They're not just for OCD recovery. So again, info at OCD Recovery if you're interested in our webinar and coaching services, and that gives you access to the WhatsApp groups. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great day.